Welcome back, everybody, to Bell with Bobby Blaze. This is episode 43. I am your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmer, and joining us now, the star of the show, Bobby Blaze.
Hello, I'm just sitting over here with my dick hanging out and one sock on, ready to record, man, on a Sunday afternoon like we always seem to get together. Otherwise, we can never fucking hook up because we got a lot of shit to talk today, man. But we're back. It's episode 43. Like you said, we're going to finish our discussion on the greatest cage matches of all time, or at least in our memories. How's that?
Yeah.
It's good to hear you back.
Oh, it's good to have you back as well. You know, I always miss it when we miss an episode. So, you know, fans out there, sorry. Bobby had that FTC show last Sunday that he had to do, and that's just what happens to us sometimes.
Yep, and it turned out to be a good thing for a Sunday afternoon. They had started off something small. It ended up being pretty big, involving several promotions throughout this area, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and you guys. Might have been a couple from Tennessee there. And they raised a good amount of money for a that was injured, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. So that was a real good deal. And I had to be in a corner. I didn't have to be. I chose to be because I thought there opened his mouth, and I'll get to that in a second. But I was in Casey King's corner in the biggest match of his career against this jock strap or jock Samson of a guy from Nelsonville, fucking Ohio. Talker, man, but we had a little confrontation over there, and I've known Jock for about 10 years now, and he's a hell of a good, well, I won't say he's a good brawler, but he's a hell of a shit talker. He's got one of the strongest promo games out there, man. We had a little run in, and you know, things go the way they go sometimes, but my hat's off. They had a hell of a good match. They got the pop of the night someone threw a big punch. Someone else caught it in their jaw. Sorry about the stiff shot there, Jocko. But anyway, I heard you a little conference cat too, man.
Oh yeah, it's you know, Twitter's this weird thing. So the other day, I don't remember what day it was now. All of a sudden, I'm getting dragged through some shit with you and Casey by some fucking jerkwad I'd never heard of. And I'm just like, well, what the shit is this? And then I said something. The guy's like threatening to fly to California and kick my ass. So, you know, I'm just like, okay, pal, you know, Mr. Career athlete, you know, picking on a guy who just had a heart attack over here. You're pretty fucking tough, man, you know.
That's just his style, man. And he's got a couple of fucking morons for partners through the years. The Scarbonis, I think he wanted me to give them a shout out. But you know what? Fuck all of them. You know what I'm saying? Fuck you.
Well, that was the thing too. It's like he's telling me he's on a plane headed to California, and I went and checked him out, man. I could tell you he's going to need a tag team partner to carry him to California because he can't get anything done by himself. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. But yeah, he's actually a very respectable wrestler around here and travels quite a bit, does Canada and the U.S. So yeah, he's a good dude too. But you know, you got to kind of have fun with it when you can. And he had a hell of a AC, and all the matches were 11, which was just the right amount. I hate them shows that have, 10 or 20 matches like a damn TV taping or something.
Yeah.
So that was a good fun time, but that's just, again, fans of the show, of the Bobby Blaze podcast here, Jeremy, we're not going to record during the week. That just has fallen through the last year or so, which we're getting ready to come up on our year anniversary. Mm-hmm. But these Sundays afternoons seem to work for Jeremy, the professor, and myself, because I don't know what the Scorpion schedule is. He might keep some weird hours.
He keeps weird hours, yeah.
And Bobby, we keep these hours where, you know what, if we can get together on a Sunday afternoon and record, that's best for us, because otherwise it's probably not going to happen for whatever reason. Have a cold beer. What? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's why I wasn't here last week. We're going to pick up, though, where we left off last week once we get into our actual podcast. But I guess we kind of gave a shout out there to FTC and Casey, the promoters over there. Do you have anyone else you need to give a shout out to? I know we've got some other news we're going to talk about.
Well, yeah, I think we're just going to go into the news because I don't really have, a whole lot to get into. And I do want to apologize, everybody out there. We're having some weird network issues, so I'm occasionally losing Bobby here. So we're, if it goes out a little patchy, I take my apologies. It's not our intention to put out a bad product, but sometimes shit happens.
Right.
But as we record this, not to reveal our gimmicks or anything, but it is May 26th. It is the day after AEW's premiere event, Double or Nothing. Yes. And I have not watched it all yet. I have seen clips of it, and I've been, kind of checking in on it, and some pretty big shit happened.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that the wrestling style they are going for is a mix of Japanese and American, basically. You know.
Yeah, the clips I saw look real good.
Mm-hmm. I guess SEU was there and did a hell of a match. You know, Scorpio Sky and, you know, a couple of those guys. But the guy I was watching talk about that match afterwards said it was like watching, you know, a bunch of acrobats in the ring together, which gets, sometimes it gets to be a little bit much for me though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have a good mix on a card. I saw the first hour free on YouTube. I watched that only because I was reminded we spoke about this off the air, and I really thought it was this evening because we've become so conditioned to watching pay-per-views on a Sunday, it seems like. And anyway, I had a phone call, and I appreciate it, and it was a reminder. So I did watch the first hour. I watched the Battle Royal and a couple single matches. I have to say the Battle Royal to me was like I thought I was watching a freak show of what they do out there. But it was, you know, once the show started, I didn't watch it. Given the opportunity, I really didn't really have a sincere interest in it. I did have an interest, but not a real sincere one, not enough to purchase it or go somewhere and watch it, to be honest with you. But of course, I wanted to know what was going on, so I've you know, followed through watching clips and things. And one of the things I wanted to bring up, I know you got a lot of different things you want to talk about for this. I wanted to bring this up. The Cody Dustin match, from my understanding, it was a 5-star match. I had a couple people tell me that, and some of the things I've seen online. I wanted to bring up that episode 4 of our podcast was on the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go back and listen to that podcast, I brought that up because I have to say, no matter what your beliefs are, you have to think somewhere, some way that Dusty, big old Dusty himself, has with his 2 sons, and also with Cody for really, you know, getting this thing, sticking it out, and I guess making this thing work, because it looks like they're going to be more than a T-shirt company, folks. That's just what it looks like to me. We spoke a little bit about it, Jeremy. What's your thought, and where's it going?
Well, so what we do know as of now is that TNT has given them a TV deal to start in the fall.
Awesome.
So, and then I did find a quick blurb, but keep in mind this is coming third hand from an unknown source. AEW has filed for a trademark on the name Tuesday Night Dynamite.
Nice.
So if everything's going the way it kind of sounds like it's going, we're going to have wrestling on TNT on Tuesdays starting this fall. There is going to be a real alternative on national TV to the WWE at that point. And that's not knocking. Look, there's a lot of small companies with, you know, local TV deals and things out there.
Yeah.
It's not knocking them. It's just hard for them to get the word out.
Yeah.
And this is good because if this lands as well as we're hoping, this will give more avenues to up and coming guys. You know, those guys working the indies who want to hit it big. This is going to give them another place to go. And
absolutely.
And you're going to be able to look up wrestling on online stuff and not just come up with WWE shit.
That's right.
Yeah.
A good point. And it's good for all the fans, man.
Mm-hmm.
And the competition, it drives guys to work. Sometimes, you know, I'm not sure how, you know, obviously the WWE with the rights and that. And again, we always respect the athletes that work there and things. But see, this will push everyone. It'll push us to work harder. It'll push the indie guys to work harder, you know, to improve their game, if you will.
Yep.
And then, you know, it gives them another alternative to go. It gives, and has it become and even though it may look, I know you got a couple reveals here, all these guys have worked through the WWE through the years, but now they're with this company here, and you know I hope it doesn't turn into where one guy just finishes up with WWE's over to the AEW, but they're forming their own stars. They've got their own company using guys that have been established, and it just gives everyone that much more, and hopefully it'll push these guys to deliver a good product on a Tuesday night and also deliver their pay-per-views. I know they got another one, I think it's in November, not mistaken. So see, again, it goes back to people can sit there on the internet and be armchair quarterbacks all they want, man, but it's a good thing, I think. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, and it is good. I'm glad to see that they took their time getting their product together. They did a good show. So, you know, I mean, it's easy to joke about them just being a T-shirt company, but they're starting to get the rubber to the road now, and we're headed to them doing that. There were a couple surprises last night.
Yep.
I sent you a picture of it, but I don't know if you've looked at it yet. The AEW belt, yes. Definitely looks like it was done by the guys who did the IWGP belt.
Nice.
It does have some of the similar markers there, you know.
Yeah, you sent me the picture, I think, Bret Hart.
Yep, Bret Hart holding it.
Okay.
Bret Hart was kind of a shock as far as I know.
Yeah, I think so.
Diamond Dallas Page also had to carry Cody's wife from ringside after she kept attacking Dustin Rhodes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yep. Okay.
So there were some familiar faces there last night.
Awesome. I heard this. I haven't confirmed it. Again, it's kind of third hand. From my understanding, Dean Malenko's now with backstage capacity. I was happy to hear about that.
Really?
That's what I've heard. Third hand. So just take it with a grain of salt right now. Go online and look, but I knew he had finished up, I think it was last month with WWE, if I'm not mistaken. It may have been March, but I think it was in April. And from my understanding, he's a backstage hand now. I'm not sure in what capacity. That's just what I heard. And that's, again, just take what I say of that for a grain of salt, because I'm always interested in Dean Malenko. But I know he's good friend with Jericho and I can see that connection there, because he's got such a good mind of putting matches together and calling finishes and those type of things. With the younger guys, he's always just been so helpful working with the younger guys. So I hope that's true. And then I think you have one more big reveal, if not more, you wanted to bring up that took place last night.
I do, but I want to read this real quick because I hadn't heard that. But this is a press release. I don't know what the date on it was. AEW today announced a multi-year deal with world-renowned coach, producer, and wrestler Dean Malenko, effective immediately. The former number one ranked wrestler in the PWI 500 will take on the role as senior producer / coach.
Nice.
So
thanks for reading that to me.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't know where I heard it or read it at. I'll just say that. I know it's third source. I didn't make it up. I didn't dream about it, but I did read it, but not that detailed. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck, Dean. Good luck, Dean.
No, that's awesome. WWE never really knew what to do with him anyways until they got him into that, like being an agent position. They didn't know what to do with him as a wrestler. So that was always the shits. Yeah. Especially since he was like my absolute favorite, Yeah.
I agree. I said for years, before he even got Wrestler of the Year 97, I said, I was in Australia with him. Of course, I trained him. Frankie Reyes was in a business probably about a good 6 or 7 years ahead of me, and he was a Malenko guy from being in Tampa and growing up watching the great Malenko. And we was talking at several shows like, man, if people just don't understand how underrated Dean Malenko is, because no one had really heard of him. So we he's definitely my favorite too, and probably the greatest I've been in a fucking ring with, to tell you the truth, is Dean. And then the other thing was that on our other podcast, you go back and also had Dustin on one of our podcasts as one of the most underrated guys too, I think, didn't we?
Yeah.
We've done a little bit about him before, about how, his career, he kind of here or there, but now it seems like, man, he's got this big deal with his brother, and I don't, think he'll be doing, anything that, I don't know how to really word this. He's still in the business, and he's still got a lot to give to it. And I'm glad to see that, because I know he's close to my age. And I like I said, my understanding, it was a 5-star night, and the highlights that I saw, it all looked really good. And so, you're out there with your younger brother. I can't see why you can't tear it down or set something up for the future. I had an idea who it was, and then you told me who it was, because I saw the bit where they're going to be a tag team against your favorite team, I think.
Oh, yeah. The Young Bucks.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah, there you go. But I think he still has a lot to give to the business. I don't know how much he'll give to it, but I think it'll be a lot. If not out there performing all the time, I think you'll still have some capacity doing something, and still, of course, making the appearances in the ring as needed. Yeah,
and this is going to sound a little funny, but I'm going to say he's only 50 years old.
Right,
and
right.
50 is, for a wrestler, that's getting older, but 50 ain't as old as it used to be at all. Like, nowhere near it. Yeah. So, he's got a couple good years in him left, I imagine. And that's before just getting into production and, coaching and stuff that he could do as well. And
That's what I like to see.
Yeah. Well, we have talked in the past that Dustin almost got a push with Crockett in WCW, and then he jumped ship and went to WWF or WWE.
Yeah.
But I don't think Dusty Rhodes' kid gets a fair shake from Vince at any point. You know what I mean?
You're right. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So, look, Cody was, look at what happened there. Just like, you don't know what to do with the Rhodes kids besides trademark our names and make us not use them.
There you go. Yeah. So, but they're on their way now. It looks like they got their own company going on. They got a lot of good people associated with it. I think Jericho may be pushing 50. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah. He come on and done a promo I don't know if he had a drink or two. I don't even know if he drinks, but it looked like, I don't know if it's the cameras, what else. What the fuck is he? But then he goes out there and apparently he has a hell of a good match. And again, I know we're leading to someone, that came down the aisle there, and I'm going to lead you up to that. So what happened at the end of the show, Jeremy?
Well, so I believe Jericho put away Kenny Omega, which means that going into the first title match is going to be Hangman Page versus Chris Jericho for the title. But at the end of the match, somebody from the WWE showed up and knocked everybody out. Jon Moxley, a.k.a. Dean Ambrose, comes out of the crowd and just starts laying fuckers out. I think he even laid out the ref, if I remember right.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw that on the highlights as well. I had heard people talking just at the show last week, just around town, a couple of fans that I talked to on the regular, and then a couple of things I saw on Twitter, of course, and I didn't expect it. It may be a possibility, but then when I saw the clips this morning, it all made so much more sense because I heard he was on the download from WWE that, that he was going to re-sign with them in the near future. He was going to do some movies, this and that. So I wasn't, buying into, and that's the thing about being a wrestling fan. When you find out something like that, we guys at the show last week, and I had my good friend David Bunter come by and hang out with me for a couple hours, and we were talking, and he's from Cincinnati, Ambrose is from, or Moxie, and he really put him over. He thought last week, he like, I don't know, man, what he's going to do. I really hope he does show up, and obviously he did, and I gassed went off the building when he did. So, All Elite Wrestling, Jon Moxley, hashtag All Elite now, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So they're getting some people in place, man, to make this thing, like we talked about earlier, to make us, to be a little bit redundant, to make a good run at this. And I just wish them luck because I think it's good for the entire business. And also, the main thing, these guys, two things. They got a place to go to work at, and also the fans have got something else to watch on a national level. That's good, man. That's good. And I know we're talking about AEW a lot, and we got other things to talk about, but man, we're just happy. I think we both say we're happy for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like it's going.
Now,
so.
I got one last thing I want to bring up about this, and then we can move on to the cage matches.
Sure.
If you're Eric Bischoff and you read somewhere that TNT just gave a wrestling company a contract for a TV show, how pissed are you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Eric stays pissed. I don't know.
Well, so, because the reason he didn't follow through with trying to buy WCW is that TNT said, no, we're not going to have wrestling on this channel anymore.
Yeah, and my understanding, I think we mentioned it last week, if not someone else did, I think they said they'll never have that channel again.
Yeah.
At some point, that was just like, no interest whatsoever. But I guess, I don't know all the stuff behind the scenes, but I guess between Jericho and Cody and whoever else had the set downs, I'm drawing a blank on the owner's name. Khan. Yeah, Khan. And then, I guess the Young Bucks and is it Brandy? Between all of them, I guess they really just had, they hashed this thing out and come to agreements, and it's looking good, man. I think the wrestling business, it works in cycles, and I really think it's on an upswing on the cycle. There's a lot of good independent shows out there. You mentioned earlier someone had local TV. That's a good thing. I know a couple guys last week. I even met a guy from Australia, from Melbourne, Jay Stick, was here. He's here for like 3 months. He's been staying up, I think, in Pennsylvania area. He was on 3 shows. Jock had worked 3 nights. My boy Yeet, there's a young guy around here named Yeet, hashtag Yeet out there. I hear you, boy. Casey, they all worked 3 shots last week, man, at different towns, some in Pennsylvania, some in West Virginia, some in Kentucky, and some in Ohio that I know about. So, and then David done one over in Indiana. So, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff just in this area here. I'm not talking California or Maryland or New York or Florida, because I'm sure there's a shitload of indies out there too that I just don't come in contact with on a regular. But I think, like it is on the upswing. And yeah, if you look for it, you'll find some shit out there. You'll find guys that didn't go to the tanning bed or haven't been to the gym or might weigh $150, but you know what? That's okay too. It really is, because if the fans are going out to these local shows and supporting your indie professional wrestling, I think that's a good thing. And again, it gives all these guys something to work for, because you can got these overseas tours, whether it's to Japan or where have you, or if you can go to Mexico or Canada and do a tour here and there. And then in the States, you got 2 major companies to choose. I think that's a good thing, man. And so hopefully the wrestling business is on an upswing. And then you got me. I'm just an old fat talking old school wrestling with my friend Jeremy here, the professor. And we're coming up on our year anniversary, and I know we need to get into the greatest cage matches of all time, according to the professor and Bobby Blaze's memories, which
That's
mine
right.
may be a little shot.
Well, I know mine's been shot. Well, we don't need to get into that, but
right, yeah.
no, but that's that's awesome. That's good stuff for AEW. I'm glad to see they're coming along. I am a little worried that it's just going to turn into the big two pissing on each other and whipping their dicks out. And I don't know what this means for the NWA title now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, I forgot about those guys.
Yep.
My bad, man. See, that's another. And did you mention it in NWA, Ring of Honor, and Impact? So there's a shitload of stuff going on, guys and girls.
Yeah, there is. Oh, yeah, and women's wrestling is probably the best it's ever been right now.
Yes, and I think Charlotte is in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was the pace car setter today for the big race in Charlotte. So, fuck, man, these people are everywhere, guys. The professional wrestlers are, the girls and the guys, and the girls are definitely on the upswing, man.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, the women's division, here it looks like AEW, it's going to be pretty strong there, it looks like. ROH has a fantastic women's division. They put on.
Yeah, I've heard that. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it. Yes, I have. I actually watched it one night late. I might have been a repeat or something. I was like, what the hell? It was like a full hour, the women of Ring of Honor. I didn't know it was a thing, and that's been a couple months back, but I was very, very impressed, to say the least. So anyway, we need to probably move on here. I'm going to drop this out here real quickly. Speaking of videos, if you go to tinyurl.com, BBBB video, because I was going to mention we've got a list going right now. Be My Valentine, Texas putting those out, and I think we went from 17 down to number 7. I think it's just been released, where he takes our voices from his podcast. And if you want to see some good eye candy and also some very talented professional athletes and wrestlers, the young ladies out there, we've done it very respectfully. There's about 10 episodes of Be My Valentine on the tinyurl.com BBBB video, and we have 2 videos now that have reached over 100,000 views. Paul Orndorff on the Legit Badasses, he's reached 155,000 downloads, and Ming, the number badass, if you haven't seen it, go watch it, folks. It just went over 101,000 views in the last couple of days.
Wow.
It was lingered around 99.7 for like 2 or 3 days. And I went back, and it's like 1,700 fucking views in like 2 days.
Wow.
And it took it out there to 101,000. So go out there and check those out. And one more thing, if you're on Twitter, follow Jeremy at the Geekish Cast, and follow me at Bobby Blaze 744, or the joint account at Bell to Bell Blaze. And some of those things will be updated. Mine's updated pretty regular. Jeremy takes care of the YouTube channel. Jeremy takes care of the Twitter page, the Bell to Bell Blaze, and he edits this fucking show, and he does a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes. So we'll get back on those channels and update in the near future. But hang with us, guys, and use the hashtag BBBB, and write Jeremy, write me, or write the Bell to Bell Blaze podcast page. I don't pay attention to any YouTube comments, just so you know, but I do always answer the tweets, good, bad, and different. And I appreciate everyone retweeting for me. And we're trying to gain followers on our I started to say YouTube guy, I meant Facebook. There's a page Jeremy takes care of there.
Yep.
So he's got a lot of irons in the fire, folks. So just check us out anywhere you can on social media, man.
Yeah.
And follow us here, of course.
Yep, absolutely. Remember to download the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. If you got friends who are into classic wrestling, please tell them about us if they don't know about us. I mean, we appreciate everybody listening. I'd just like to get a few more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is probably the most, if you're just tuning in, this is probably the most that we've ever talked about another product other than old school wrestling. We have talked about, upcoming events and things like that, but we really put over AEW today, and that's a good thing. Shows that maybe, I don't know about Jeremy because I know how old he is, but at least one old fuck here is starting to care about wrestling again in a good way. Mm-hmm. So I think two of them are, and we hope you are too if you're a wrestling fan. And with that said, we better jump into our episode because we only have a few of them to go over. We kind of dropped off last week. This is part 2 of the greatest cage matches. If you're still with us out there, we mentioned as we went off the air, the first one we're going to talk about real briefly, and all these will probably just be briefly, guys, and it's just our list from our memories of the greatest cage matches of all time. And the first one we had was the last Battle of Atlanta. It was Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer. And it grew for like over 30 years that this footage was lost, and I had remember seeing this way back when, just in the covers of magazines and highlights of it on WTBS, of course, and things like that. And, it's one of those things, Jeremy, I'm just going to put this out there. It was a bloody mess. They beat the shit out of each other. And it's just one of those things where, when it happened back in the day, it was so shocking. Mm-hmm. And so I'll use the word exciting and thrilling, whatever you want to put to it as a wrestling fan. But then I watched it. I think it's been brought back down. I'm not sure. It may still be up there. But I watched it a few months back a couple times, once last summer, and then right before they took it down, again, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And, you're sitting there watching 30 minutes of 30 years of memories, and it's not quite how you remember it. Yep. Still good, still bloody, but, hey, it was the last Battle of Atlanta. And it's,
Well, it lived in infamy for a long time.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it was one whose legend grew, and then one day somebody found the footage, And,
right.
And there's always one match I compare everything like that to, and it was Bockwinkel Henning for the title, a 60-minute draw. I remember this thing being an amazing match. So I dug it up on YouTube a couple years ago. Fuck, they were in an Indian deathlock for like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, these matches, they live in your brain for a while and they grow into their own size.
Right.
Then when you go back and watch it, you're like, not quite what I remember.
Right. And the thing is, though, back in the day, you watched it. That's the thing. These guys made you watch. That's the thing. They drug you in, brought you into it. Drew, as we talked about, in building up a cage match, you just don't jump into it. We talked about that last week. Mm-hmm. They built it up to that match or to that 60-minute draw or to what have you. And it brought you into it. And yeah, like you said, man, it's just one of those things in your memory. It sometimes look better than when you have to go back and see it. Mm-hmm. Speaking of going back to see it, I think Tex tried to call us out on something. I want to say something real quickly. Even though I'm not a fan of the big blue cage in the WWF back in the day, that's not to take anything away from the dangers and the injuries and the risks that the guys put themselves through being inside that cage. It just wasn't my favorite type of a cage. So with that said, one of the matches from July of 1985 was in a cage match in the Baltimore Arena, sold out crowd, Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship match that Tex brought up because Jeremy said, and I agree, why would you want to get the fuck out of the ring to win a match if you built this thing up? But in this case, Greg the Hammer Valentine with Jimmy Hart versus Tito Santana, big old 15-foot steel cage, man. Spot on announcing by Gorilla Monsoon. Tex brought it up. The winner, whoever gets out of the cage first, wins the fucking match. And I have to say, I saved it for the day to watch it, so it's fresh in my mind. Hell of a good match, Jeremy.
Yeah. Well, that's, Tex just had to go and slam a cage door on my head on this one, basically. Yeah.
That's what I'm waiting on.
So, I will concede.
Yep, I will too.
Yeah. I admitted as much on Twitter that, okay, you got me on this one.
Yep. And it was a hell of a good match. Tito wins it. He slammed, Valentine's head in the door. Riders are both ready to reach the arena floor. Per the rules, first person to touch the arena floor outside the cage wins the match. It was played up pretty good at the beginning. Hammer kind of went like he's getting out of there, and you knew he wasn't. And then Tito did the same thing, immediately started going out. I'm thinking that was only if there was a flaw. That was the thing that Jeremy and I was talking about. Why would you this guy only to run away from him? But I don't know if he caught himself. I don't know what anything was pre-planned or just go by. I would imagine it wasn't, other than a finish. But he did kind of go at the first minute or so like he was going to get out, but he didn't, obviously. And, right when Greg the Hammer's coming out of the cage, Tito's slipping down outside the top of the cage. Hammer of course, he sees where the door's at. He pushes it, starts to reach out, and man, it's back to we talked about last week with the Freebirds, with Gordy slamming Kerry's head in the cage to start that. Tito kicks the door, hits Valentine in the head, and Tito's feet hit the floor and wins the match. It was really done really good, man. Anyway, that was another good one. And I'll let you throw another one out, but we're already off the two good ones, man. Our last Battle of Atlanta and the Greg the Hammer Valentine versus Tito Santana from July of '85 match. Whoever gets out of the cage first wins, and it was a hell of a good cage match. Go look it up. It is on YouTube. I do know that.
Yeah, it is. And it's worth the watch.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Well, the next one we're going to go to, and I haven't seen this one in forever, but it's Owen Hart versus Bret Hart.
Yeah, I haven't seen it forever either.
Yeah, and I think we just recently passed Owen's anniversary of his death, like 25
20
years,
or 20, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is kind of a shitty time to bring it up, but those two, okay, so Owen Hart and Bret Hart, two of the best wrestlers ever in history. Just plain and fucking simple. There's no getting around it.
Absolutely.
And you put them together in a match with their talent, their skill, their work ethic, magic shit is going to happen. And it did.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, this is another place where you and I got to eat a little crow because we both prefer that cyclone fence style cage.
Yep.
And here's where the big blue cage is actually used to put submission holds on each other and shit.
Yeah.
So, we eat a little crow again on this one. We were wrong.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. No big deal. But yeah, a hell of a good match. I guess it was, one of the few 5-star matches that year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be. And it depends on who you ask, whether it's 5-star or not. But from my understanding, it was a 5-star match. So, yeah, good stuff, man. SummerSlam 94, Owen Hart versus Bret Hart. What else you got, Jeremy? Anything?
I have not seen this next match, so you're going to actually have to do a lot of the heavy lifting here. But the Bluegrass Brawl, Pikeville, Kentucky, the Rock and Roll Express versus the Heavenly Bodies, loser leave town.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that one up. I'm pretty sure if you go back to our episodes of my favorite matches of all time, this was in my top 3 of seeing a live match. I'm pretty sure, I'm going to say 95. I'm pretty sure Bluegrass Brawl of 95. I wrestled Buddy Landell. White Boy was there, Tracer, regular crew of Smoky Mountain. But the main event was a Rock and Roll Express versus the Heavenly Bodies, and the loser leaves town. And it was just a hell of a match. It's one of the ones where the babies were flying at the finish, and it was just crazy. People, high-fiving, going nuts. The cage there, it wasn't, the big blue one. It wasn't the cyclone type fencing. It was like a big chicken wire, type, it served its purpose. I'll say that. And that was the thing about it. It was a, pretty high, pretty good type, deal. Secured the ring, double knockouts at the finish. The Heavenly Bodies both teams had already, worked a little bit for WWF that year. I think a Survivor Series and something else, but, Heavenly Bodies, no one really knew, who was going to win or lose. And that's the allure of it, folks. You don't know who's going to win or lose. You kind of have an idea that the Rock and Roll Express are going to be here forever. As a Smoky Mountain fan, that's what you're hoping. But also, you want to see the guys get a good chance to go onto the, big national TV, if you will, even though we had good coverage on a lot of regional TV and satellite. But of course, we talked about before, the WWF being the mecca to be at the time. And then, of course, the Heavenly Bodies had done the same, had been on there a few times, and that's who lost. And and of course, Rock and Roll Express wins. Just a hell of a good match, good solid work. Just being in a building, it's at Pikeville College. It only holds about 2,000 people. I I dare say there's probably 25 to 2,700 people in there. Some people, probably another 500 outside, and that's no exaggeration. Maybe it is. Maybe 2,200 to 2,500 might be more realistic, but there was well over, 2,000 people there. Cause that was a year. We did that show about 3 times a year, but the annual show was the Bluegrass Brawl every April. To have a thing here, imagine this, Jeremy, called Hillbilly Days. And that's what they have up there. And they had it for years. They had wrestling up there. And it's still a big deal here. I don't know if they do the wrestling anymore from my understanding, but back in that day they did. And the Rock and Roll Express and the Heavenly Bodies tore it down at the Bluegrass Brawl rather. So, anything you want to add or any question about it? Cause it's one of those things that lives on probably more in my memory of a good memory binger at night than it did of, go back and watch it.
Might as well spoil the match with this question. Who won?
Well, Rock and Roll Express won the match. Of course, the losers had to leave town. Of course, they only had to go to the WWF for a bigger, better paycheck. Mm-hmm. And the Rock and Roll Express, I'll say this, they sold the fuck out of gimmicks in Smoky Mountain. And that night there, they had these big ass, blow up guitars that, I guess they got at a fucking county fair or something. The ones you blow up, the big neon fucking pink and green. They was selling these some bitches like $5 a pop that night. And man, they was autographing the fuck out of them, selling the fuck up. So I don't know if going to WWF was, the bigger contract for the Heavenly Bodies to leave town, or if it was just that much more gimmicks for the fucking Rock and Roll Express to sell, because they was selling a shitload that night. And yeah, they won. So, good finish too. From my recall, it was the double referee thing where the referee is down. They'll switcheroo. Curtis was in there, and I think, if I'm recalling correctly, I think Brian Logan ended up sliding in. So it all worked out. But yeah, Rock and Roll won, and loser leave town only to get a WWE contract.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's important to have somewhere to go.
Yep. And Rock and Roll's still over. They're out there after 35 years, man. They're still out there on the road. Just saw them, last month. Yep. And, all that Cornette, his Midnight Express, they're out there doing all these reunion things. And of course, he was managing Heavenly Bodies that night. And, of course, he had to leave too. He went up to WWE. He's already out of scenes and went on screen as a manager, and we all know that story. So yeah, back to the cage match itself. Very, very good cage match, man. Very good. I rank it right up there in the top of live matches seen. I put it in my top 10 for sure. So I know we got a few more we want to talk about. Any more about that one other than who won it?
No, that's really the only question I had. I mean, I'm familiar with the Heavenly Bodies and Rock and Roll Express. I didn't see them wrestle there that night, but I'm familiar with them enough that I'm imagining the Rock and Roll was selling the shit out of moves and,
Yeah, absolutely. And they worked the cage, they worked it. That's the whole idea of a cage match. So that's all good stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to this is the last one I have on my list. We're going to go with Big Dusty and Ole versus the Masked Assassin with Lars Anderson with Ivan Koloff as a special referee.
Yeah. I had one more. I didn't know if I sent it to you. Can we backtrack one second?
Sure, yes.
Let me just throw this out there because we don't have to say a lot about this. I just went back and watched it today, and I may not have included it, to be honest with you, when I sent it over to you. I just want to bring this up real quickly, and we're going to jump into that last one if you don't care, okay? Because I have the notes on Dusty and Ole and the Masked Assassin with Lars and Koloff as referees. I'm going to backtrack one second. Even though that's 1980, I'm not backtracking the time frame. Let's just say it. There's 2 matches from where Mankind and The Undertaker wrestle. And one of the Hell in a Cell from June of 98 is where you see how athletic both of them are because, Mick's already up on a cage, but Undertaker climbs the fucking cage from the outside, and then he ends up throwing Mankind off the fucking top of the cage onto the announcer's table over there. That was Jerry Lawler says he's dead. You got Big Jim Ross over going, oh my God, all that. That one and the other one, and it was around that same time period, give or take a year or so. I'm gonna get to a point here. The King of the Ring was the other one where Mick Foley actually got chokeslammed through the fucking cage. And that's where Undertaker dropped down in the cage with the sprained ankle. I mentioned that before because Mick Foley was putting him over. What a good athlete the Undertaker was, once again, because he's out there performing on a fucking, busted up ankle and having to drop down out of the top of that cage. Those cages, of course, had the top on them. And I got scared to death just watching them. I watched them again today. There's a couple minute clips of them. What I didn't do intentionally was this, and now we've brought this podcast up because I wanted to do that from memory and also just just the clips of the 2 to 3 minutes that those things took place, because there's actually a video out there, and I haven't watched it yet, Jeremy. Mm-hmm. It looked like it's about 15 minutes. It's the Undertaker and Foley. They're talking about and reliving their matches through the Hell in a Cell and the King of the Ring matches. And I didn't want that perspective going into this, kind of save that for later on. We both talked about being on YouTube binges. I'm going to go back and watch that. If you type in the Undertaker throws Mick Foley through the cage or off the top, there's a little segment, and it looks, and I honestly don't know if it's just a recording off a podcast or sitting down for WWE TV, but I am going to watch that. I think both of those matches just need mentioned on here as great cage matches, even though we kind of mentioned this last week. I don't really remember how good the fucking match is. You just remembered either the finish or something that took place inside that cage, or in this case, one of them outside the cage when he took that tremendous fucking bump that I don't even know how to describe it, man. It's just, go watch it. I'm surprised the guy's still with us and walking, but both of those matches are worth going back and at least checking the highlights of. Any comments before we go on to our final?
Shit, Mick Foley's only barely walking. I mean, I love Mick Foley, but there comes a point where you look at somebody, you're just like, stop fucking doing this to yourself, please. Yeah. You have entertained us enough already.
Yeah. He's a good dude too. I'll say that.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, he even recorded a bumper for our show.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Big shout out, Mick Foley, real Mick Foley. Thank you. That's right. Thank you, Tex, also, by the way. Get that in there. Oh, yeah. Okay, back to what Jeremy brought up, and I didn't mean to backtrack. I just had that note. My apology. I don't think I sent it over to you. It was just like 2 lines, and I had the rest handwritten. So, anyway, Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson versus the Masked Assassin with Lars Anderson, Ivan Koloff, special referees, the Omni, man, the hotbed of the South, man. That arena was the Madison Square Garden of the South, man, when it came up. And this is Omni 1980, and this was just, as the notes here say, long booking game. Ole took a year building this thing up as a babyface, man. And it's just one of those things. Let's get that fucking babyface. And that's the point of our show, of the greatest cage matches. Let's get the heel in the cage so he can't fucking escape. So the fans can't interfere. So there can be no outside interference. But for this fucking part here, brilliant thinking. Ole has to get the baby face in the cage. That's the whole idea. Instead of the heel, a baby face wanting to get that heel in that cage to where there's no outside interference, etc. Yeah. But now it's just plotting and planning along. I'm going to be your friend, Scorpion. I'm going to be your friend. Or the Scorpion, in this case, being a heel, Ole, just a little reference to the Silver Scorpion and our characters here and stuff. Yep. Jeremy, trust me enough to get inside this cage and whip their ass, and we'll get those assassins once and for all. And man, of course, we know what happened.
Yes.
Get up, man, because it's brilliant.
Well, it is what is often referred to as a Batman gambit, where it is so planned out that
I like that.
Yeah. It is so planned out and so deep undercover. I mean, you had Ole. Okay, fucking Ole Anderson go into the ring and high-fiving people in the audience. You should know something's up. Yeah. And, yeah. I mean, this was like, what did you say? A year that they built this up, where Dusty. Well, Dusty splashed shit all over himself, because a year or two before is when Dusty gave his "This'll never be over" Ole speech. And so this was the blow off for that. And yeah, the Omni was your blow off arena in the South. Yeah, that's absolutely. That's when you did your big show. Yeah.
Yep. And they got Dusty in that ring. He gets the heat. He goes for the hot tag. And what's Ole do? Every fucking thing a good heel should do. He turns and attacks him. And that's the thing, man. They beat down the fucking Dusty and blah, blah, blah. And, that goes to again, it's one of those things where I saw it in the magazines. I saw clips of it, when it comes out the following week on TBS, and they run it accordingly. And I will say this, again, it's one of those things where you don't know how good, to me, I don't know how good the match was, but I do know that just from all the angles and the build up and it's just one of those things where that's what you're supposed to remember. Is, just that, okay, they're beating the fuck out of Dusty, goes for that tag. A year's worth of, trust me, and then fuck you.
Yep.
They beat them up. Everyone attacks them, beats them down, and this, that. And then, to this day, if you go back and watch it, it's on YouTube. Just look at that. Ole cutting a promo. I'm sure, like I said, it was on TBS the next week, and whether you call it Georgia Championship Wrestling at the time or
I think it was still Georgia.
I think it was. But anyway, NWA, whatever you want, Ole goes on TV that next week, man, and cuts a fucking heel promo. That's just fucking awesome. And I know I get a lot of Cornette references. He used to make the guys at OVW watch that. If you're a heel in the game, go out there and watch that fucking interview. That's all I can tell you. There's some things that stand out, and I just remember that next week again, one of those things going by memory. Tune them back in next week on TBS channel 17. It was channel 6 on our local cable here, but out of Atlanta. And man, when he went on that and they showed those clips of him turning and him gloating and gleaming about it, that's what a true heel does. Now, the fan, it lured me right back into, of course, Jeremy and myself, we cheer for the heels.
Mm-hmm.
But, who doesn't love? We're back to the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. We're talking about his sons at the top of the hour.
Well,
but at this point here, he lured them out there and got them in that ring, Jeremy, and fuck them.
Well, and the other thing is, you have to have a cage around you if you're about to fuck Dusty Rhodes in Georgia.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. That was not a safe place to be in. And Ole only had to be stabbed for it once. I think that was probably the learning experience right there.
Yeah. So, anyway, any things about that Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson cage match? If not, I'll do a recap and we'll get ready to log off out of here.
That sounds good. Wrap us up.
We got the last Battle of Atlanta. We had Rich and Sawyer in the cage. We had, I spoke briefly on the Mankind and Undertaker matches. We talked about Bret Hart and Owen Hart from SummerSlam 94. We also talked about the big match where someone has to escape, and that's Greg the Hammer Valentine versus Tito Santana from July of 85. We spoke about the Rock and Roll Express at the Bluegrass Brawl, and I think we just now finished up with one of the greatest cage matches of all times, Dusty and Ole versus the Masked Assassins in Atlanta at the Omni. So that about wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think that does. I think that does it quite succinctly. So yeah, everybody. Oh, I did want to mention one thing before we go.
Yes.
And I may try to angle this into a show one day where we talk about shit like the Western States titles and things like that. But have you, Bobby, I know you don't really watch the WWE any more than I do, which is like neverish. They have introduced the 24/7 title.
Yeah, I think Waffle House wants their fucking clock back.
Yeah, that's holy shit.
I didn't watch it. I guess as soon as it goes off the air, or maybe even when it's on the air, I'm on Twitter a lot. I keep it. I just like Twitter. I started seeing, what the fuck is this? And then I start seeing all these hashtags, and of course the pictures are right there. So I did see the title that Mick Foley was holding up, and I saw the Waffle House. Even Wendy's got in on it, I think, with the Waffle House about wanting their fucking clock back. So you got fast food places making fun of the WWE 24/7 champion. I don't know. Tell me a little bit what you think, Jeremy. Am I burying it or putting it over? Because I don't really know. Put her back in a ring track, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is what it reminded me of the Backlund world title when he was the WWF champion. That big gold monstrosity with the round plate, and you couldn't really tell what it was. Also, this shit where you take a belt and all it is like a logo or a word. That kind of shit is. I don't like the directions that the wrestling belts are going in the WWE.
No.
To me, that AEW belt, the IWGP crown. A belt should look like a prize that you are willing to fight for. Yes. It should not look like a fucking class ring.
Absolutely.
And
That's
should
the
not.
whole idea.
Yeah, and it should not look like a Waffle House clock.
That's right.
Oh,
that's right.
But then they did this 24/7 shit with the hardcore title 20 years ago, and it was funny for about 14 seconds.
Well, that's 13 more seconds than what I'm gonna give them this week. How's that?
That's I'm with you. I just wanted to comment on that.
I'm glad you did, because I forgot all about bringing that up. I'm glad you brought it up. That's an excellent way to take us out of this show, because wow, that was a big highlight this week, from my understanding, with that awesome looking belt. Whatever.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Well, Bobby,
anyway,
I think we had a great episode. I did get a question from Manny this week at work. He's like, "Did you guys even do a top 10 list last week? Because I never heard a number."
Yeah.
No, we just did a conversation, Manny. Your ears are working just fine. It's okay. But anyhow, Bobby, anything you want to wrap up with before we go?
No, thank you very much. And last two episodes, in my opinion, we've talked about a lot of great cage matches. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll be back here next week with a fresh new top 10, or at least another conversation that you'll be a part of.
Exactly. I kind of want to do something like ugliest and most worthless titles. So, I don't know. We'll kick it around. We'll figure it out. But Bobby, it's been a pleasure talking to you as always.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and everybody else, it's been your pleasure to listen to Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Bell with Bobby Blaze. You can follow the show on Twitter at BellToBellBlaze. You can also follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyBlaze744 and Jeremy on Twitter at TheGeekishCast. To purchase one of Bobby's books, you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook1 to purchase Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots, Will Travel. And you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook2 to get I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler. To donate to the show's podcast hosting fees, you can visit gofundme.com/Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. Be sure to include a hyphen in every word in Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. If you follow and listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. Be sure to share the show with any wrestling fan you may know, and get on the Facebook page where you can keep up with Bell to Bell fans just like you. Again, thanks for listening to the program, and look for the show again next time.